Prototyping of Future Learning Revisited. And as you may hear by the title, I'm very delighted that you are back from the HPI D-School. You've been there like on the last UFF already, and we are more than happy that you are back for a revisited version. And if you have any questions during the session, please write them down in the chat or the Q&A tool. You can find it in the navigation bar, and after the input we will bring your questions to the speaker. And with this, I will give you the floor, and thank you very much.
Thank you. So thanks for having us back again. So even though we have been giving a sharing session last year, this one is also going to be brand new because we're also going to be with a brand new team. So I'm happy to be here. Claudia, Nicolai, I'm the academic director here at the HPI School of Design Thinking in Potsdam, and we are on site, and I'm together here with my colleagues.
Thomas Grundnigg, I'm one of the program leads and responsible for the basic track online version.
And I'm Avinash. I'm also a program lead. I'm responsible for international cooperation projects.
And I'm Sherif, Sherif Osman, I should say now. I'm also one of the program leads in charge of the shorter format programs.
Exactly, and we're going to take turns in terms of sharing with you what we have been also learning, but also designing, and then prototyping again, coming up with a new version of learning journeys for our participants that we have at our D-School in several programs. All the programs have something in common, design thinking. So we try to bring them together in teams, interdisciplinary teams, try to apply in different way of working, problem-based learning, and then hopefully not just enhance their creativity, but also come up with great ideas and hopefully innovations at the end. So that's what we do, and actually what lies behind all of that is that we are pretty much focused on trying to enhance the future learning skills amongst participants, amongst students, amongst young professionals. And with design thinking, that's obviously, if you see that on that slide in the lower quadrant, it's about critical thinking, but being creative at the same time, being able to communicate your voice, your opinion, but also do so in a team setting. So those 4 C's in terms of future skills are super relevant for us, but the above ones are relevant as well. Because with that, we hope to give them, in terms of trying this all out in our programs, a new perspective of what's be possible for them in life in terms of career, and also how they can take that on learner's mindset for the rest of their lives. Because I'm feeling the same way. It's not that we repeat our programs, it's really trying to bring in something new, trying to try something out. And one thing that we really tried out, not only once, but twice and several times, has been about like how to bring in a different way of information media and technology skills. And bringing that in means for us bringing it into design thinking. So that's just overall, just to also kind of set the tone and set the frame, is our understanding of what design thinking is all about. It's about a life-centered, if you also want to say a human-centered mindset, to come up with these innovative solutions for those problems where we don't know exactly, when we start tapping into the problem space, where the solution will be. So therefore, any complex problem that can appear in a business context. So what's going to be my next product service generation that I'd like to offer? What's going to be mixed offers? What's going to be my next business design? How do I work if I'm going to move into the non-profit sector with citizens? So how can I offer convenient services to citizens? How can I create communities? Or also how can I actually bring awareness and attention and also a different way of acting to fields of life as, for example, waste management. So that's what actually design thinking can be applied to. And the core pillars, the 3 core pillars that we have been using in the past, has actually been those 3. Those 3 in terms of describing this as an iterative approach, making use of a process language that goes back and forth, making use of a team, not only as a group of individuals, but as a team that brings in different areas of knowledge, different areas of expertise, different personalities as well, and to really work together towards a common goal to create an intervention that will make a positive impact. And pre-COVID, we have been doing so in this wonderful studio space, pretty much analog, as you can see. We're now actually moving a bit out of the picture. But also, as you see in this tiny little green rectangle, we also brought in a bit of tech. And we also had to change many, many things in order to find new ways in terms of innovating our learning experiences for ourselves and for others that still tie into what we actually hold dearly. These are actually our values in terms of having programs that are open, that are inclusive, that respect diversity, that builds on trust and creates a safe space for each and everyone in order to bring out creativity, going sometimes also with your gut feeling, but always doing it together in a team. So that's radical collaboration and taking roles in different ways. So there is not just one leader that says to the team members where to go and what to do next. It's the responsibility of the whole group. Because with that, we deeply believe we're able to create impactful innovations and can also make change happen. So therefore, that's what we have in mind. And therefore, that's also the reason why the process in terms of the mindset brought to action-based learning we apply to, we have been starting to frame also from a value perspective with the sustainable development goals. So that's kind of our value frame that we actually use to bring that to life in any problem-solving context we are tapping into. And tapping into, also looking at the chat from time to time, the camera, something, okay. I can also just keep still and then there might be no stream issue, let's see. And tapping into, we want to actually take you back what we have been doing. Because space has been such an important component pre-COVID. For us, nobody really would have been able to challenge us to take that away from any design thinking program. So therefore, we have been fully on site, more or less fully also analog when it came to learning experiences, to creating prototypes, etc., with any of our programs. So thinking with your hands has been like our core message in terms of program design pre-pandemic. And then pandemic hit, and we took on the challenge exactly in March 2020. So we didn't give us a break. So we just went full throttle in and started to experiment with a couple of different versions. And those versions we'd love to walk you through in more detail. But to give you the big picture, we actually started, because we didn't have any other chance, to create those team-based, place-located programs fully virtual. So the first program versions were fully virtual. We played around with different ways of synchronous, asynchronous learning, and it was a bit of a mix. We had some learnings there that we're going to share in detail that actually brought us to be more deliberate, also with the pandemic, and also being able to come back into the classroom, not fully at the very beginning in 21, 22, we also had these lockdowns, close downs. We then started to play around with hybrid forms in terms of offering everybody their way of being in the program, either on site with one or two team members joining you here in the place, or being virtually, also again with 2 or 3 other people joining virtually, or everybody on site, or everybody virtually, and same also for us as the learning designers and also our coaches. Which was also great in terms of having that like offer so you can choose, but it also like was a high burden on us. So therefore our third like wave of program design we brought into was something that we now call HyFlex. So really deliberately choose from the beginning, where are you going to be? Either here on site or online, and then design based on these given constraints. So now we want to look a bit more into detail in what we have been doing so far, and I hand over to Sherif, who will share with you, and I step back, what actually the D-School was all about.
Thank you, Claudia. So yeah, so basically taking you a little bit back in history. So when I first joined D-School around 5 years ago, this was kind of what it looked a little bit like in these photos. So it was fully inside experience. There was 4 different programs that offering different types of takes on design thinking and approaches to learning. But the focus was always to be problem-based, to work with real authentic projects, to be experiential, to work in diverse team collaborations, bring in these elements of shared leadership and agile work with regards to space, but also of work mentality and approach, and start embracing this life-centered approach with regards to the SDGs and also thinking beyond just one user, and of course, developing an innovation and entrepreneurial mindset. So of course that sounded amazing, and it was a great learning environment to be in, kind of what I would dream about as a learning designer. But then when you have to transfer all this online, things get a little bit tricky. So I pass over to Tom to take you through that next part.
So yes, thank you, Sherif. We, as many of you, had the challenge to bring our programs online, and we did that within a very short time. And as also many of you will recognize the rectangles, the squares of Zoom calls or video calls, we switched to digital whiteboard platforms, and also set up studio spaces to for new content production. So, but that comes with a lot of questions and a lot of for reducing the cognitive load in the programs, redesigning the programs, redesigning the learning approach in the programs. So what we learned from going fully online was that asynchronous and synchronous work really works well. So we divided the days into two parts. We had instead of a full day on site, we had half a day on screen and online live, and we had a lot of asynchronous work prepared. So this involved also new roles, like for example, a digital concierge onboarding people to Zoom calls, or also the role of the teacher change, becoming more of a content creator for the asynchronous work. And what we experienced is what is also reflected in the whole community is that the learning material itself works good, but it doesn't provide for community building or informal learning on site. So that changed a lot. So what we did was we shortened the days, we shortened the contact hours and screen time. We split up into smaller teams because big teams in Zoom calls are not really working in the same way as they do on site. And we gave our participants more time for conceptual learning. So going to our online learning platform and retrieve content from there. So instructional videos about using the technology, about going into depth with the methodology we use, and also providing additional reading. So that opened up also a lot of possibilities to go into depth in certain areas. And from there, then the regulations for the pandemic opened up a little bit. So we changed it a little bit to a hybrid situation where we can sometimes also have people on site again. And Avinash will tell us a little bit more about the mixed hybrid.
Yes, so as the newest member of the HPI team, HPI D-School team, actually I do not know what a fully on-site program looks like. So I have always experienced this mixed hybrid programs as a learner, as well as on the other side of the table as a learning designer. And this was a completely new experience on the path of figuring out what could our deliberate decisions be or choices be as a learning experience design for the next learning generation, you can say. And what we learned in this process is we can have learnings and team online and offline. Both of them could be there and they may work. And with all these choices, we don't know who's coming on site and how many members are online. We had to figure out how the team constellation work when some people are on site and some people are online. So different styles of coaching and inclusion has to be brought in to facilitate that kind of a learning experience. One of the other things we learned with this mixed approach with people online and on site is that we need more content to be created. One, to facilitate learning on site, but also for people who are at home or who are in different environments, different time zones, learning at the same time. And this combo of directed and self-directed teamwork was working. We had facilitated learning experiences where people were directed for teamwork, while we had space and time for people to work on their own, facilitating, or you can say giving space for self-leadership, for their own self-accountability for learning as well as doing teamwork. And from there onwards, I give it back for HyFlex.
Thank you. So yeah, so after a lot of experimentation, and maybe this links back to the title of the presentation, why prototyping the future of learning, because it's really been a series of iterative cycles. And it's not that we took one blueprint across all our programs, but literally every semester we were trying different mini experiments in different programs and trying to channel that learning through to what we then thought was the answer. So last semester, we started to go into this HyFlex mode, and the target or the goal for us here was to really provide a seamless experience for online and online and on-site participants. So it shouldn't matter where you are, you're kind of sharing the same experience with your cohort, with your team, and so on. Now, of course, that came with a lot of also challenges that we discovered along the way, ones that we anticipated, ones maybe that we did not. So with this goal of creating a seamless experience, I would say we succeeded in different parts of the program. So there was a lot of moments where this really did work so well. It didn't come without cost. We also had to invest in telepresence robots, lots of screens, tech, and ability to integrate the people who are not with you in the room to do whatever you're doing as a team. However, it was more inclusive because it also allowed for people to still join us virtually that would not be able to come to Germany, for example, or are not able to take that time off from their studies for one whole semester or so on. But of course, it started to dawn on us how time differences can be draining on participants and on coaches, and that made inclusivity a little bit tricky at times. It, of course, involved a different type of coaching and inclusion. So, for example, it arose in one moment where one participant alerted us that they had a visual impairment, and the tool that we were primarily have been using for a couple of semesters and succeeding with doesn't really work for them because it doesn't have accessibility options. So this then allowed us to also experiment with different tools to make sure that we can cater for the cohort, and of course go back to our design thinking origins of always knowing our users first before designing moving forward. And this, of course, brought in a new way of deliberating on coaches training, coaches setup, how people can handle coaches. Of course, as a coach in the analog space, you're able to be right there with your team or teams, but if they're in different breakout rooms in different locations, it might be a little bit trickier. And this meant then an additional burden for the participants at times and the coaches to figure out what is the additional time, which is not actually additional, right? It was the core part of the program. That they would like to be able to find that extra time to work together. So of course, a lot of our participants sometimes are also working or doing their masters and not always able to commit to additional times that were not specified in the program. And our biggest learning was really to try and find that correct balance between reliance on technology and resources. So we realized as someone who's leading the program, that oftentimes you are concentrating more to provide that seamless experience with the tech side of things. So making sure that everyone's audio is working, camera is working, like we have here some issues and so on, but not really focused on the content. And this is something that we try to kind of really find the balance for, and hence why these additional resources, different roles started emerging in the team and so on, to be able to handle the technological component, to provide that seamless experience, freeing up some headspace for the program lead to focus on the cohort and the content of the program. So all this learning now, I think we've reached a stage where we feel we can make enforced choices rather than reactive choices. And I'll leave this floor to Claudia to talk you through a little bit more what's happening here.
Exactly. So by the end of 22, we were like in that situation, as you said, right? We have been experimenting with lots of different prototypes, also have found not only good reasons, but also good program designs that have been working in the past. With now the opportunity, the possibility to really fully come back into the studio space with all constraints gone, guess what? We're not doing so. And we're gonna do this deliberately as also a choice. Because what we, for the programs we are currently running or just kicked off for the summer term, since the beginning of 23, is going to be either or. So really designed on purpose. And designed on purpose, we're going to go, yes, back into the studio space. So we're going to be on site. We are on site. But we have been now deciding to use digital tools. So there's going to be, for example, in terms of tech around the teams, the opportunity to use a smart board to work not only on a physical whiteboard, but to design, but also to brainstorm and create something, a digital prototype, on a digital surface. So that's something where we have learned that that actually brings together both of the best of both worlds. But it has a clear hook in terms of default is we'll start here together with also this informal gatherings that we then also can provide. And it's still so it's something that actually like brings in that quality of these like learning moments that you can't design for if you only have digital tools at hand in a fully virtual program. However, on the other hand, we also have been deciding and designing fully online programs, because That's also our way to be far more inclusive. And for us, as we are open to anybody to apply from anywhere, sometimes coming here to Potsdam, to Germany, to Europe is actually their barrier. They can't make it. They need a visa, they need money, etc. So the fully online version, also with analog tools being used at the remote office or the place you're working with, is our decision to be made. What we enable here is a very powerful component of people in terms of, in this program, we, for example, bring in more like learning designers, teachers, for us it's coaches, who work with the team, and it creates a very meaningful experience to do so. So that's what we'd love to make use of in order on a global scale to be inclusive as we can, instead of just having that on-site program. And you, as a participant, in order to start your learning journey at the D-School, have to decide whether you start with one site or if you start online. On-site with digital tools, online with analog tools. And based on that, and that's the decision we made in advanced program offers, we bring in hybrid or HyFlex. So that means that you have either really gained that experience, okay, how does it feel to do a warm-up where we can actually work on personal closeness, or what we have done in a virtual world, to really build on these experiences, to be able to also then create that inclusive and progressive version of collaborative teamwork. So then you have seen it all in a good way. But it also means for us, we do not only have to design those programs differently, but we also have to teach our coaches. So we need a different portfolio of skills to be brought back in or to also brought to life. And our key learnings for these deliberate choices, Sherif will share with you in order to also bring this back to what's the prototype of our future learning starting now.
Thank you. So yeah, I think there was a lot of key learnings we tried to share last time when we were still in this mixed hybrid format, and this time maybe we share with you more of a still version. So from a tech perspective, connectivity and low-tech fallback is always a great option. Think basic. So if you have this super complicated HyFlex setup, but the mic is failing, just use the next nearest computer, right? And don't try and spend 20 minutes to optimize the audio while the technician is there and everyone else is waiting. We realize that the too much effort to try and be seamless sometimes can make things very not seamless for the audience. Of course, creating social elements, so transparent and easy communication, having one conversation at a time, providing some kind of digital netiquette in a sense, or the way that people should all align on an attitude to join the online component and include people who are on the other side. With regards to content, focus down, slow down, and focus on the real essentials. So sometimes too much is too much. And if we try to cram in so much stuff and provide what we were providing before, but in a virtual manner, it doesn't always work. So really redesign for your current cohorts, do small experiments, small prototypes in order to go forward. And community building and informal learning, I would say, is super essential. We realized we tried to come up with different ways to kind of foster that within the online world, lots of different experiments. In my opinion, we haven't fully succeeded in that element yet, and neither has anyone that I have seen so far. So if you have tips, please do put them in the chat for us. We'd love to try them out. But maybe with some of the newer technological breakthroughs that have been happening in the last few months, that might become more feasible. Making experiences memorable. And I think this was something we realized a little bit late in our first iteration, but have since really put as a priority. And I remember one of the coaches, after like our first successful semester of Zoom, coming up to us saying, "Oh, are the final presentations going to be just another Zoom call?" And that really shocked us, right? So we had to think of something, and bringing in this idea of themes, of narratives, of how do you create a story, how do you create a hook for people to really be engaged in observing something like this. And we have a little sneak preview of the video of a compilation of these final presentations to show you a little bit later. Finally, something that I learned, I think, in my first week as a learning designer in university that I think we all seem to have forgotten in the past 5 years is that technology is just a vehicle. It's never just the answer. So no matter how much you invest in the tech, no matter how many shiny things you have that are super new, it should get you somewhere that you want to get to and not just be the answer to things. And this is what we realized with a lot of the experimentation of tools that we brought into the situation. Finally, different coaching mentoring approaches are definitely required for different modalities. So whether you're coaching or teaching in HyFlex, in hybrid, in virtual, or on site, that might require you to expand your tool belt as a facilitator, really dig deeper into how you could facilitate your style and approach into that new modality or setting. And finally, consider your resources and channels and how to best use them. This idea of, am I really teaching, or am I just producing cool YouTube stuff now without realizing what I'm teaching? So think about who's your core team, what you can really offer, and what could be new or interesting roles within that to provide that seamless experience you'd like to provide. And now we're embarking on a new chapter. So what comes next, Tom?
Well, besides having life-centeredness as a guiding principle and having sustainable development as our compass, we of course also jump on AI and creativity as a topic this term. So we put that into 3 sections. We are experimenting this term with our cohort. And I frame it as a process over outcome AI collaboration, which is a human-machine interaction, a human-computer interaction that basically is not focusing so much on like in ChatGPT, that's the other version, like we prompt it and we get a result, but it focuses on guiding or accompanying the process. So it's kind of an additional team member as an artificial intelligence. The second part, as I just said, is rapid prototyping with AI. So there's a very fast outcome and a human-machine co-creation there, but it focuses more on the outcome. And then for the finals, I think that you have to say that because it was your idea, and it's great.
Yes, so as a final experiment, what we're proposing to our teams this semester for our basic foundational program is basic track students versus ChatGPT. So we're going to channel some of the user research and insights that the teams produce and feed that to ChatGPT and see what ideas or innovations it can come up with, and also the way it's going to present them while the teams do their final presentations this semester. So stay tuned for that experiment. Maybe next year we can share with you some of the results for that.
Maybe one last thing. This is also accompanied by fireside chats with
Exactly.
a lot
So
of
it's not just
experts that
experiments.
reflect on what we're doing.
Yeah, so I think we wanted to leave some time for questions. So we still have a couple of minutes there for questions, and maybe at the end of the questions we can showcase the video.
Thank you.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very, very much for your presentation. So there are already some questions in the chat, so I would just give them forward to you. So Jörg Witkowitz asked, social learning is one of the strongest success factor in higher education. How did you realize it via hybrid or HyFlex?
So one of the first things that was a little bit maybe easier for us than others is that everything within our programs is team-based. So the teams were already working in these team constellations in smaller groups with a facilitator, coach, or guide. So that kind of helped a little bit in kind of setting up this social dynamic a little bit. We always encourage teams that could meet up to do meet up. But we tried a lot of different experiments. As that some of them were successful maybe on the short term, but not maybe so much in the long term. So we